Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about the 7th grade standard for geometry, number 4, that says students will be able to use formulas to find the circumference and area of a circle. And today we're going to focus on the area of a circle. So right away I want to throw this out there. The formula for the area of a circle is area equals pi times a radius square. So there it is. You've probably heard that before. And today we're going to just talk about why this works and what is a radius square and why are we multiplying it by pi. So let's get started. All right, one of the first issues is that it's a circle. So how can we count the squares that cover the surface of a circle? Well, it's not that confusing if we just start to draw some lines, right? I'm going to draw a radius, and then I'm going to draw another radius, and you might start to see this is going to form something like the beginning of a square. You probably know that a radius has the same measurement. Whatever this radius is equal to it, right? All the radii of a circle are going to be equal. So what I'm really going to do is I'm going to take these radii and I'm going to use them as the basis of a square, just like that. Okay, so there's my radius square. And that's what we're talking about over here when we have radius squared. Here you can see that the width is 4. Try that again. And here you can see the height of this square is 4. So 4 times 4 is the same as 4 squared. And we can see that these have an area of 16. This radius square has an area of 16. One important thing to notice, though, is that all 16 of these square units are not inside the circle, right? Some of them are outside. This is not part of the area, right? Not area of a circle. So keep that in mind, right? Some of them are inside, some of them are outside. And what we're going to try and do is figure out of these 16 squares, how many are inside and how many are outside. So let's just start counting here. It looks like we can clearly say this is one unit that's inside, one square unit that is the area of the circle. This is 2 of the squares that cover the circle. This is 3. I'm going to skip this one because it's not entirely covering the circle. This one, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those squares are clearly part of the circle's area. I'm going to go ahead and call this one 9. This one looks like it's a little bit out, but let's just estimate it. We'll call it 9. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're going to try and make some whole squares, right? The rest of these are fractions, right? This one's a fraction, this one's a fraction, this one's a small fraction, this one's a fraction, this one's a fraction. They're all pieces, right? So let's see if we can put some of these fractions together to make more whole squares. First of all, I'll take this small piece of the circle, and I'm going to put it up here. Maybe yellow is not the best color for this. I'm going to take this small piece of the circle, and I'm going to fill it in here, and that will make another whole square. This is part of the circle, and I'll attach it here. Now we have 10 whole squares. I'm going to do something similar here. I'm going to take this small piece of the circle. This is part of the circle's area, and I'm going to move it up here, and that might make a total of, say, 11 circles, 11 squares inside the circle. I'm going to take part of this area of the circle, maybe this little piece right here, and I will add it down here, right? That'll make 12. That'll make 12. And this looks like it's left with about a half, right? Call this 0.5. So let's just say that out of my radius square, 12 and a half are in the circle's area, and the rest are outside. So how much is the rest? Well, let's see. This was 4 by 4. That gives me an area of 16. And if 12 and a half are inside the circle, that means 3 and a half are outside the circle. Okay, so these white ones out here, I'm just going to kind of color these in. this one, and this one are not part of the circle. They're outside. So where am I going with this? Well, let's take a look. Let's build another radius circle. Another radius square, I'm sorry. So here's 2 radius squares. And I'm going to do another one. That's 3 radius squares. Let me show you the next one, 4 radius squares. Now, just make a note of this. That is 4 groups of 16 units, 16 square units. That's a total of 64 units squared. That's clearly more than we need. We still see all of these extra pieces outside the circle, right? So this is not the area of the circle. This is way too much, or seems like too much. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to back this one off and see if 3 radius squares are enough. Okay, so I'm going to make a little note of this, right? Right now, I have gotten 3 times the radius squared. I should make these a lowercase r. 3 times the radius squared, right? 16, 16, and 16. And I'm wondering if that's enough to cover the whole circle. So let's look over here in this blank space. Right now, I want to see if I can cover this over here. And let's think about how much I need, right? We've figured out that one of these quarters, right, one of these fourths of a circle, I will need 12.5 units to cover. That's what I would need to cover the inside of this circle. And I have a lot of extras out here. I have 3.5 up here, and I have 3.5 down here, and I have 3.5 extra down here. So let's see, 3.5 times 3. Let's see if that will be enough to fill up this circle. 3.5 times 3 will give me 9, 10, 10.5. That is not the 12.5 I need, but it's close, right? Remember, I needed 12.5, and I'm only getting an extra 10.5. So it looks like 3 groups of the radius square is enough to cover most of the circle. It'll cover all of the inside, and these extra white pieces out here will be enough to cover this almost. So 3 times the radius square is almost enough. But not quite. We need something a little more, and that number happens to be 3.14. That's a little more than 3, and if I multiply that by a radius square, it will be enough to cover the rest of this piece. And that would be the entire area of the circle. So imagine I covered them with 3 radius squares. I chop off or trim off these extra white pieces, and I use those extra squares to fill up this space. Those 3 squares are nearly enough, and over time we figured out that the little bit extra that we need is 3.14, or pi. Remember, we could also use 22/7 if it was convenient to do that. All right, I hope this helps you understand why the formula for area is pi r squared. Keep in mind the idea of a radius square. That's a really important concept when covering the surface area of a circle.